Hey guys, this is just a quick video. I just wanted to point out what happens to the centre bearing in the rear drive shaft after you lift the car. This is predominantly a Mazda BT-50 and Ford Ranger issue. If you have vibration issues after lifting the rear of your car, this could possibly be the problem. So I recently installed a suspension kit from Outback Armour. It came with a centre bearing spacer kit, and all this did basically was add a few spacers to drop down that bracket that holds the centre bearing on the rear drive shaft. And what this does is make that angle straight again, and hopefully it reduces the vibrations. So I've got three shots here. One is of the car in its stock form. This is pre-lift, but it does have about 350 kilos in the rear. So instead of being straight, there's maybe a slight angle that way. The next shot is after I lift it with no kit. It goes like that, and then I add the spacer kit in, and it sort of straightens out back to where it was before. Now obviously you can play around with the size of the spacers or the amount of the spacers just to get it perfect. I was lucky enough that choosing the correct springs and putting the full spacer kit in eliminated all the vibration issues completely. So I didn't have to look too much further into it. So we'll have a look at the different angles for what I shot. Also know that outside of the horizontal changes, there can also be a pulling or pushing effect for that vertical alignment. And I have seen people flipping the centre bearing mounts to fix that vertical alignment, and then as well as dropping it down to fix the horizontal alignment. Underneath the rear of the car we have the transfer case here, and then we have the drive shaft or tail shaft or propeller shaft that heads towards the rear diff. Now this has a bearing in the middle because this is a two-part system. Some cars may have a one-part system, but this is a centre bearing. We want this to be aligned vertically and horizontally. Today we'll be going through the horizontal angles, getting it as straight as possible. So if this angle is wrong down towards the rear diff, that's when you'll get driveline vibrations. So what I was talking about with the vertical misalignment is that the rubber boot here or the drive shaft can push towards the transfer or the rear diff, and then you can get spacer kits that you install at the rear diff to align it horizontally again. So I'll link a video up the top now of a video that shows this whole process on a Mitsubishi Triton, adding a driveline spacer, but today we'll be going through the actual drop down spacer kits for the horizontal alignment. The other spacer kits actually get installed here, and it is basically a plate that pushes the whole thing back towards that centre bearing. So you can see the change in angle in the centre bearing as I tighten up the spacer kit. Obviously this is exaggerated because the full weight of the centre bearing was off. And just a quick look at what the centre bearing looks like. It's just three spacers in between the mount and the actual centre bearing bracket that drops the centre bearing down. So before I put in the spacers, looking down towards the rear diff, you can see how it angles down here, and that's why we need a spacer kit. So we're just going to jump to some comparison shots between the three different setups. So we'll be comparing three shots here. The first is the factory setup, so it's the OEM leaf springs with about 350 kilogram load on the back. The next will be after the lift with 300 kilogram constant leaf springs, but no spacer kit. And then finally we'll compare it with the spacer kit. So I tried to get the camera in the same angle for all of these, and then dropping the opacity on the shots, trying to line them all up. And then I used a plugin that tells me the angle just by drawing a line through two different points. So we'll start with the original suspension. Now this does have about 350 kilograms load on it, so it is possible the drive shaft has actually gone past that 180 and is about 179 degrees here. It could still be 180, it could be 178. The point is that it is basically a straight line. We're just using this for illustration purposes to see how lifting the car changes the angles and how putting a spacer kit in changes the angles. So it's about 179 degrees, slightly off straight in the opposite direction as to what you would get in the lift. Now this shot here is after I've installed 300 kilogram constant leaf springs, and you can see the angle here goes to about 183. So it is gone the other way. It's 3 degrees off being straight, but if we accept the other one as 179, it's a change of 4 degrees in angle. And if we allow for the fact that both of these could be up to 1 degree out, because it's not a very scientific measuring method, then we could be seeing up to about 5 or 6 degrees change in angle here. Now, after putting the spacer kit in with all 3 spacers, we see a new angle of about 179 degrees. Again, it could be slightly off because of camera angles, but it is basically back to where it was before, if not a little bit straighter. It's kind of hard to tell. So I could even try this with 2 spacers and see if that improves things, but I'm actually getting no driveline vibrations at all with the 3 spacers. So I'm just going to leave it like this because everything has worked well. Now I'm just going to flick through pre and post lift without spacers, and then I'll flick through post lift with and without spacers. And you can see the differences here as it changes. This is after doing a lift before the spacer kit. And you can see I don't get any pulling out of that vertical alignment. So for me, the only thing I needed to fix was a horizontal alignment. And then this is pre and post spacers after the lift. And you can see the change in angles there. Alright, so that's it for that one. Not much to it. I just wanted to point out the differences just so you can see how things might be changing on your car and why you might have vibration issues in the back. So hopefully by spacing it out or by flipping the bracket around or some combination of the two, you can get rid of the vibration issues in the driveline. Thanks for watching.